Okay, hello, welcome back to another video. Today, as I'm sure you can see, the setup is looking a little different on screen. The thumbnail and the image below me here, this unbelievably awesome image, depicts the man who I'm sure you're aware was known as Robert James Fischer, or by most people, Bobby Fischer. This American genius was without a doubt the best chess player around the 1970s, and many consider him to be the greatest of all time. Now, I'll make videos in the future on the GOAT debate, whether it's, Bobby Fischer, Garry Kasparov, Magnus Carlsen, or you really go back in time and it's someone like Paul Morphy. But that is not what we are doing today. Today we are going to go through a game, a beautiful game, finished in just 17 moves by Bobby Fischer against Reuben Fine in the year 1963. This game was played just 1 year before he went on to win the American Chess Championship 11-0, 11 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws. A never before done feat that stood him at the top of the chess world. At the time of this game, Bobby Fischer was only 19 years old and Reuben Fine was a nearly 50-year-old man with years worth of chess experience. However, there is a very famous quote, the quote which titles this video and the quote which you can see above you here: "I like the moment when I break a man's ego." Now, Fischer is quite famous for this quote even in the chess world, not just in the TikTok edits. And today I'm going to show you guys why. We're going to go through this game where 19-year-old Fischer slaughtered Fine in just 17 moves. So, Fischer has the white pieces, Fine has the black pieces, and Fischer opens with e4. Best by test, we are using his own quote to justify his gameplay here. e4, best by test, and Fine responds with the move e5 here. Fischer goes for knight to f3, we see knight to c6, and then bishop to c4. This is known as the Italian game, developing the bishop to a super active square, putting pressure on the weakest square in the black camp, only defended by the black king. And here there are many playable lines for black. Knight to f6 is one of them, but we see bishop c5 here, the gioco piano. Now, for any devout Agadmator subscribers, you will know what is coming here. Bobby Fischer plays one of the most awesome, one of the most aggressive, and one of the most surprisingly sound gambits in all of chess. A gambit, of course, being where you give up some small amount of material for maybe an attacking initiative in the opening. And here we see a prime example of that, the beautiful Evans gambit with the move b4 here. Now, why is b4 such a good move here, or why is it such an exciting or at least interesting gambit? Well, the point is, we don't really value this b pawn a whole lot at the moment, and so we're going to use it to deter the bishop to b4 as we see in the game, to then play c3, kick the bishop back, and then go for d4. This is the main line of the Evans gambit. The idea is that we are sacrificing our b pawn for some sort of positional central dominance. We've also kind of sidelined this bishop a little. Yes, admittedly it is pinning this pawn to the king here. However, after takes, we can castle kingside here. Now, the opponent does not have to take. It's known as the Pierce defense taking in the first place, but this is what we see in the game. Fine takes the pawn and Fischer just castles, and after Fine takes yet another pawn, we see queen to b3. Now, this is all established theory. The point of queen b3 is to couple up with this bishop and create a dastardly looking battery towards the f7 square. As we mentioned, this bishop came to c4 to try to exploit the weakness of that square. The queen joins it and also adds a threat here on the c3 square, meaning that knight takes will very much be an opportunity. Now here, Fischer is down 3 pawns. He has sacrificed 3 of his pawns. We saw b4 initially, then when his opponent took on d4, he didn't do anything about it and just castled. Then his opponent took here, and he played queen to b3, so 3 pawns down. But if we turn on the engine here and just have a little glance at the number up here, plus 0.1, basically meaning that no, this is not a drawn game, this is far from a drawn game, but that white and black have equal winning opportunities. And let me tell you, if you are down 3 pawns, but still have equal winning opportunities, black is in a lot of trouble. The reason being, they are going to have to play very precisely, because you definitely have a big attack brewing. Now, up until queen b3, queen b3 included, this has all been very established theory. It is known as the compromised defense version of the Evans gambit. The reason the defense is compromised is you kind of give up the whole positional and center dominant structure that you gained for really quick developmental play. It kind of reminds me of the Arthur Schnapp gambit against the French, the way you have this bishop on c4 and the queen coming to b3 here. But as I said, black has to play very precisely, and black doesn't play that precisely here. The best move would be queen to f6. The point of queen to f6 is obviously to defend f7 primarily. However, after a move like bishop to g5, queen g6, and knight takes c3, white has a beautiful position. This is not going to move. It's very, the king is very much in the center. The knight is super mobile, in fact to the point where bishop takes is one of the only playable moves. This is a great position for white anyway. However, Fine does not play queen to f6 and instead plays queen to e7. Now, queen to e7 here is a good move. It's not the best, it's inaccurate, but it's not completely stupid. You want to leave this an f6 square for the knight. It's very intuitive because you don't want to block up your knight's natural developing path. And this is what I mean by saying that black has to play super accurately, because after knight takes c3, here we see knight f6, and this, the big orange question mark here, is a mistake. And all of a sudden, as you can see, we've got a +3 advantage nearly for Fischer, and he's still 2 pawns down. Obviously, he's reclaimed the c3 pawn. That was never really in doubt. The knight was always going to capture that, but he's still 2 pawns down. How can he be +3? That's like having a whole rook, because it's +3 -2. 5 whole points here is made up for in attacking ideas. And to me, it kind of seemed like queen e7 and knight f6 were part of the same move. They were part of the same core idea, which is, okay, let me defend the pawn, not put the queen on f6 so we can get the knight there, and then get my knight to f6 so I can castle out of the way of danger, bring the rook to defend f7, and this isn't going to be so scary anymore. I mean, that makes sense, right? But the 19-year-old Fischer, sharp as ever and as he would go on to be, played knight to d5, the best move, a great move, punishing this inaccuracy here. I will just make a small disclaimer at this point. This is not the best game by Ruben Fine. It's not Fischer's hardest fought win. It is just an absolutely beautiful example of a young Fischer slapping about a man more than twice his age, with more than twice his experience over the board, and it's just beautiful to watch, and I thought it kind of fitted with that whole, breaking a man's ego quote. So this is why we're going through this game. Now, we'll go over what happens if you take, because that is what happens in the game in a second. What if you don't take? Well, your queen is under attack, so you have to move the queen. Queen e6, sorry, you've lost your queen. If queen to d6 here, there is the beautiful move bishop a3, and this queen is just trapped. There's nowhere for the queen to go, because again, if it ventures to e6, we go knight here and we win the queen. This whole diagonal here, even the knight holding this f4 square, is completely covered. e6 is obviously off the cards tactically speaking, and the bishop holds the whole diagonal. It's a beautiful, beautiful move, bishop to a3. However, we did not see queen d6. And if Fine had gone for queen to d8, which is, I think, the best move in this position, then we could have seen bishop g5. All of a sudden, this is pinned. This is attacked. Like, all of the pieces are just super, super developed. The queen's snuck back to her home square. And of course, there is the move e5 on the table, attacking that pinned knight. It's not going to be a good position if you go queen d8. So here, Fine is effectively forced to take the knight. Now, why is that a problem? Well, after pawn takes, knight to e5, okay. We see Fischer trade the knights, another great move, the reason being that this was the best move and the only move to retain the significant attack. Queen takes, and bishop b2, again, the only move to keep this absolutely dominant position. Why is it an absolutely dominant position? Well, you've got to think about the activity of the pieces. So Fischer's down 2 pawns, so let's say he's -2. He's got active, very potentially active, very potentially active. Okay, so all his pieces are beautiful and flowing. What is going on with this bishop? What is going on with this rook? If this bishop doesn't move, then this rook will not be able to move, unless somehow you move this bishop, move the a-pawn, move the rook, move the bishop again, slide the rook across. It's just nonsense. This whole side of the board has no mobility. The bishop is just sidelined here, and the king cannot castle because it is under the pressure of these absolutely beautiful bishops. And the problem is here, Fine has no time to reconcile this major problem. He cannot start pushing the pawn, developing his bishop out, and trying to, counteract Fischer's overwhelming lead in development, because his queen's currently hanging. Not only is his queen hanging, but this is a very, very, very fragile diagonal with 1, 2, 3 targets all the way along it. So if Fine plays something like queen to d6 and steps just out the way of the bishop, then all of a sudden this is going to hang. There's going to be problems along this diagonal with the rook, and there's going to be checks, and it's going to be an absolutely miserable end to the game for Fine. Now this is effectively what happens, but we do get to see some more brilliance from Bobby in making it happen. Now, probably the most intuitive move, and the move that seems to most obviously solve this issue, is queen to g5, which is exactly what we see. The queen steps across, it defends the pawn, you can't now take here. What's the big problem? Also, this becomes a threat at some point. d6 to play bishop to h3. All of a sudden there's mating threats, and if you push the pawn, this rook's going to hang. Queen to g5 seems like a really active move. And how really are you going to attack the queen for being there? Like, you're not going to play bishop c1. I mean, you're not going to play h4 and throw away a pawn, are you? No. So Bobby Fischer plays h4 and throws away a pawn. Now, the reason this is such a strong move is because we are trying to defer the queen from the defense of g7. This is actually what happens in the game, so let's go through what happens if they try to defend g7 first. If fine had gone for queen to h6, just trying to defend g7 here, we'd actually have to move queen to a3, attacking this bishop, slicing the weak dark squares here for the king, and if the bishop just moves back, we have check. And if you go here, you're getting mated, and there are no other moves for the king, so the queen's going to have to come in here, and then we're just going to take that with the pawn. Absolutely beautiful stuff. But some of you might be thinking, it's not so obvious, like, well, why is he not just going to take the pawn? I mean, yes, bishop takes here, but rook g8, you're not winning the rook, are you? As you can see, this now says mate in 10. The reason it says mate in 10 is because the dark squares are so horrifically weak. This king has nowhere to run, and the rooks are beautifully active on the e-file. We see a bit of absolute genius from Bobby here. But hang on a second, the rooks can't be like active on the e-file, because if he plays rook to e1, then of course the bishop's going to take it. So, you know, of course Bobby Fischer, he's not going to blunt. He plays rook to e1 check. Now the reason this gets the brilliancy mark is because it does not matter. If he hangs this rook, we then bring the other rook to the e-file with check, and we see this is held, we see this is held. You're not going to block with your queen, and if you go king across here, we can actually play the move queen to b2, which has drastically bad complications for black. Say you take this bishop here, we're just threatening bishop f6, checkmate, straight up. This diagonal is horrifically weak. We are also threatening, if not checkmate with bishop f6, to just win the queen with bishop f6. So if you go d6 to stop this from being checkmate, we are just going to win the queen here. Absolutely disgusting stuff. The diagonal is far too weak. We dominate the e-file. Bellissimo. Fine probably recognizes this and doesn't even bother taking the rook, instead playing king to d8. And here we see the final move of the game. We have already reached the final move of the game. If you want to pause and find it, it's an absolutely gorgeous move. There are many ways to win here as white, but the best one, of course, the one that Bobby found. This was a 100% accurate game. 0 mistakes, 0 inaccuracies, 0 blunders, 0 missed wins. All just best, brilliant and great moves. Bobby Fischer, what a genius. He played queen to g3. Now, why is queen to g3 such a great move? I think this move is super clean. The idea being that if you take the queen here, we're not recapturing. We're playing checkmate. The idea of this whole game has been to lure this queen about. If we tab back here, we've seen bishop b2 pushing the queen over. We've seen h4 dragging the queen across here to then let us take on g7. And then we've gone rook e1, and eventually we've gone queen to g3, and the point is this queen must stay on this diagonal, otherwise bishop f6 is going to be mate. Now the reason I think this move is so beautiful is because there's just nothing for black to do. It's absolutely suffocating. If the queen goes here, basically the point is the queen has to stay attached to f6, otherwise bishop f6 is straight up checkmate. If you take like this, then I can take like this, and you can go here, I can go here, you can go here, and I can go here. That is still going to be checkmate. So the queen has to stay attached to f6. Now, can the queen go here? No, we just take it. Can the queen go here? No, we just take it. Can the queen go over here? I mean, no, we can just take it. Can the queen go back to h6? Well, let's see what happens if queen h6. Do we take this queen here? Maybe do we do that? Or do we play bishop f6? You take with the queen, and then we go queen takes rook, checkmate along here. What a beautiful continuation. So the point of this move, queen to g3, is just to point out this queen has nowhere to be now. If you want to go here, I mean, be my guest, you're just going to hang your queen. The game will be over very soon. And it's in this position that Ruben Fine decided to resign. The story of the game was a never active queenside for Fine, beautifully active bishops and pieces in general for Fischer, and a complete exploitation, dragging the queen about with moves like h4, and then just this final move, queen g3, just to slide the queen over, offering a queen trade that isn't even a queen trade, because there's no way I'm going to take back here. There's no way at all I'm going to be playing checkmate, and that is going to be absolutely gorgeous with a little queen sacrifice going on there. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making it. I really enjoyed looking at this old Fischer game. I think absolutely if you're Ruben Fine here and you get crushed in 17 moves by a 19-year-old Bobby Fischer, like, your ego's gone. Do you know what I mean? Your ego's been broken. Bobby Fischer probably relished this moment, as his quote may suggest. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all of that stuff. That helps out the channel. If you want to see some more Fischer games, I think the guy is, well, okay, the guy was awesome. We're going to ignore everything he said past the age of, like, 30, and yeah, cheers for watching. See you in the next one. Goodbye.